will say this.
Two people won't replace you. JT not gonna replace you, and Spike Lee. So you in the clear with that.
Spike Lee. So first of all, I want to start here though. If I could I want to make two because the clip we're airing ran on Democracy Now! And I don't want to pass the opportunity to throw appropriate levels of shade at a formerly powerful outlet that if you go back, as I remember doing, and read the early publications from Amy Goodman, she was quick to praise, as she wrote in her first book, the pan-africanists and people like Samari Marksman and others in the New York area that helped build Democracy Now! And its audience and its politics. Where they have gone to this day, I don't watch regularly at all, if much at all, really. So when I saw that they hosted this next clip, are we gonna watch it? Are we gonna play any of it? Are we gonna? I have plenty of notes.
Yeah, I got plenty of notes. I think it's pretty long to play it all, but
it is long. Yeah,
we can play some clips. I don't know if did you take any timestamps down?
I didn't take timestamps. I just took notes. But what I will do is I just played
the acclaimed filmmaker.
The acclaimed filmmaker Spike Lee
address. He talked about the making of his 1992 film.
Oh, we saw that they hosted the King Arthur. So real quick, I'm not going to watch. We saw that they hosted Eeg on Democracy Now! And I'll only just say, as Dr. Burroughs tweeted at them, and I stand by, I'm not going to watch the interview. There's zero chance their interview is better than what Dr. Burroughs and I did. So I'll just leave it at that. And if anybody suggests anything that I've gotten any of that wrong, please send me timestamps and transcripts. But anyway.
In the power of education. Just days after this event, Spike Lee's father, the bassist and composer Bill Lee, died at the age of 94 at his home in Brooklyn. Bill Lee had a prolific musical career, performing with legendary artists including Harry Belafonte,
and rest in
Aretha
power to
Franklin,
Bill Lee.
Odetta,
I'm not,
John Lee Hooker, and Bob Dylan.
No doubt. Respect.
He also wrote the scores to many of his sons.
His music
Spike
is better
Lee's
than his son's films,
including "Do the Right Thing," "Mo Better Blues." This is Spike Lee speaking last Friday.
I'm not a keynote speaker. I'm going to say what I got to say. And
that's when he should have sat down right there.
Yeah, he should have stopped right there. And in fact, let's do him a favor. Let's just stop him right there. Let's just stop him right there. let's just leave him right there for a second. Oh, whoops, my bad.
Shorty was horrible on the mic.
Okay. Yeah, let's just leave it right there. So the first thing that he says, well, I'll go quickly through my notes and then we can come back. I'll let it, and then so I don't take up too much time from everybody. But first thing he says is the autobiography of Malcolm X is important. So he goes back to reinscribing all of the new discussion, all the work and all the problems with that and all the flaws. He just leaves it at that. So it reinscribes. Now, to me, it is somewhat still of a step above claiming Marable's book, for instance, but he doesn't. He just leaves it. He just talks about the power of the autobiography, not Malcolm's work. Oh, I thought Do the Right Thing, School Days. I appreciate those films. I'm not gonna lie. I do appreciate those films. There's a lot of problems with them, and I'll come back to
Mary Baraka's critique of all of those.
Baraka's critique. In fact, I
hated Spike Lee.
Oh, he did. I reached out to Alambe Breath's foundation because I couldn't find. I used to have the audio from the legendary. I'm very upset I can't find it, and I asked him if he has it. And apparently they do still have it. I'm going to try to get it, and if I can get it, we're going to do a whole series of discussions around it. But there's this classic panel just before the film came out in '92, I believe, that featured Baraka, John Henrik Clarke, Alambe Brath was moderating, and Dhoruba Ben Wahad. That was the panel. It was incredible. And they don't all agree, by the way. Clarke and Dhoruba didn't agree. There was some, it was fascinating. But the point, to your point, Baraka made this brilliant summary dismissal of Do the Right Thing, which was Mookie shows you who he is at the end of the movie when the white man, after he throws the trash can through the thing and starts the uprising, Radio Raheem is killed for it. Mookie, representing the black bourgeoisie, starts the problem, but to Diallo's point from earlier, benefits from all the problems caused by coming back the next day to get the money from the white man that the white man literally throws on the ground, and Spike Lee picks it up and walks away. And that's supposed to be some sort of, so I'm happy to come back to all of that. But just real quick, let me just run through this real quick. It won't take me less than 2 minutes here. I wrote a note here that Spike gives the authority of blackness to whites as he eases them with no politics. So he does all the things, the black Brooklyn, black Harlem, he's black, but no politics. So the white audience in Democracy Now! Loves that. He mentions the Norman Jewison con, which I'm happy to come back to. We can, he mentions that. He tells the lives of Malcolm, because he says something about telling the lives of Malcolm in his movie that he couldn't do. He needed as much time as possible in the film because he has to tell all the lives of Malcolm. But except of course, the film leaves out all the radical life of Malcolm, all the international life of Malcolm. So he does exactly in the film what he does in this speech. He says, quote, he says he had a vision of Malcolm coming to him, referencing self-determination and self-reliance, by which he meant black capitalism, because he said he had the vision of Malcolm coming to him when he ran out of money from Warner and needed more money. So Malcolm comes and he says self-determination, self-reliance. So what does he do? Goes to Bill Cosby, first Oprah. Name out his mouth, Magic Johnson.
Almost forgot Oprah.
Yep, Michael Jordan. And then he had to come back to remember Oprah.
Magic Johnson.
All to get Warner Brothers to finance the rest of the movie, always the goal of black capitalism. So that's in other words, black capitalists, all they want to do is present themselves, build themselves up to the point where they can get the real money from the whites.
Yeah, that's what they didn't give him enough. That was just just to get the white money.
And then he says at the end of that,
once the white money.
But once the black money came in, Warner came back and finished with the round of funding needed to actually finish the film. So once he proved himself, built himself up big enough with the black capitalists, the white money came back in to finish the project. The entire speech is about himself, the film, the rich Negroes who funded him, and just like the movie, there is no room or time for Malcolm as he was or the politics that made him a threat and an inspiration. So his speech does exactly what the movie does. But you get all of this buildup, and then by the time you get to the point where Malcolm should be seen as the radical threat that he was, he's assassinated, credits roll, burn the flag with Nelson Mandela, talk about I am Malcolm X. And then the very last thing, and then is that there's nothing about Malcolm, nothing about the condition today of Malcolm's community. He only mentions Betty Shabazz because she created for him one of the best scenes
in the film. His daughter in the audience. His daughter in the audience.
And then he literally talks more about Al Pacino than Malcolm X, praising Al Pacino's chops than he does about Malcolm X, because Malcolm and his politics and the movement and the condition of his people is irrelevant to Spike Lee. All right, that's it. Go ahead.
And Oliver Stone. But so did you catch the part when he was saying that they took the 4-hour video to Warner Brothers and they really wanted to tell a full picture, right? So maybe he's claiming that if they would approve 4 hours, then we would have get more.
So that's not how I heard it. So I heard him, the way I heard him telling that was the way I hear filmmakers always talk about, we give the studio more knowing they're going to cut it so that I can get the video I want actually in. So I actually heard him, because when he said he called Oliver Stone and said, how long is your movie of JFK? Because he was comparing the length of the films. JFK, which by the way, crushes Malcolm X as a film, as a quality of film, destroys Malcolm X. He should not have acknowledged JFK and Malcolm X coming out as films in the same era or same year, because it's a complete obliteration and it's a complete obliteration of and shows what could have been done had Spike taken Malcolm as seriously as Oliver Stone took JFK. But anyway, the only reason, but he would not have been able to make that film. But anyway, so that's what I heard him saying, that I gave him a 4-hour film knowing they were going to cut it down. So I knew that they would cut, and he was apparently happy with what they cut there. That's at least how I heard what he was saying.
so running down a couple for me, like I don't like the fact of how he positioned himself to be antagonistic with these white boys, and he wrestled Malcolm away from the white boys, but he don't talk anything about his struggle with Brath and Baraka. I think that
they don't matter.
Yeah,
they don't matter.
I think that's pretty shitty. And then this idea of like the white boys and the all the people who had the film before and had the book and all these things, and they said that pretty much if they produced it, you would have got the same product with him producing it. And it's the same thing with the 5 Bloods that Oliver Stone gave to him. It's like they are bringing him in to be the closer for white people, right? They're gonna do the same script, the same story, they're gonna land the same plane, but he's gonna be on it to boast about how black he was and how, you know, he did this for the culture or whatever. So I felt like
they for the culture. Man, you know, I moved to New York in 1992, and that was when Malcolm X had premiered, and I went to the very first showing of X in Brooklyn, New York, where the very first showing, and it was in a small theater, and I stood behind a velvet rope for like 4 hours, a line across the block, right there on 7th Avenue in Flatbush. And I'm like, man, I'm a part of something. This whole New York City, NYC, progressive era, the Black Books movement. You know, Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark were still around. In fact, that later that week, I went to Medgar Evers College to a Dr. Ben Yakinen fundraiser and speech. And I'm like, wow, you know, this is where it's at, right? And at that time, you had 40 Acres and a Mule studio and gift shop. You had Sticks and Stones Art Collective. You had the Cocoa Bar, which was the first Black-owned internet cafe, because we had internet cafes back in 92. And it was Alice Walker's daughter and her partner. They opened, and it was this section in and right when Biggie Smalls was coming out. And those Negroes were like, as they always say, there's some corny ass shirt going around was like, I am my ancestors' greatest aspirations. Anybody see?
I remember that. And they used to have versions of it where they would have what was it like? It was a picture, almost a version of that classic Harlem Jazz picture, but it was like black dentists or doctors or something like that. And it was like, or it was a picture of a grad school of a doctor, of a medical school, something like that.
Or I'm not my ancestors, you can get these hands too.
All that beautiful blackness was nothing but a germ seed for gentrification. All those in that area was black classic Brooklyn.
The Spike Lee movie. Y'all, some of you are completely, Rick and Rob are completely out of your minds when it comes to
all
movies.
I'm saying is, I think it's very telling how Spike Lee was like, the whole point in rallying the black elites together was to seduce white investment, was to bring about white investment. He didn't just do that with the movie. He did.
I think his PTSD might be kicking. My bad.
What? I'm sorry, but let's.
My bad.
No, I guess since we there, like, I feel like Oliver Stone, there's an interview with him and Spike Lee talking about how he felt like he couldn't get the job done, so he gave the film to Spike Lee. And so again, Spike Lee is looking.
5 Bloods is trash. I don't care what
you mean 5 Bloods?
Says.
I thought we still talking about X.
No. Well, I'm gonna go back to X. I'm gonna go back to X, but because they're talking about this Black Vietnam in the interview, Oliver Stone was saying how he pretty much said like the movie is farce, is not true, and although it's not true, you make it look good, and it doesn't have to be realistic. We just have to make it look good. So in the interview, he's saying this, and so again, you are watching Oliver Stone, maybe in line with the U.S. Government and the state, showing you that they can use this black man to make you celebrate, U.S. imperialism or celebrate U.S. hegemony, because a black man is putting it, and he's telling the story, like the half story, the not even true story of the Black Vietnam effects. because there's also black Vietnam vets who were like, I don't want to fucking be over there. We shouldn't be over there. And there's other people who oppose the war. So again, like he did in the Spike Lee video, I mean, in Malcolm X video, I think he would have done much better talking about the opposition. There was opposition to the movie. They said, I don't want Spike to do nothing about Malcolm X. And then other people said, well, if he does it, I need him to make sure he cover these things. And I felt like it would have been way more beneficial to kind of have that conversation as opposed to I was struggling with the whites to tell this revolutionary story.
Look, Barack. So everybody, there's zero. First of all, I think there's zero chance you can conclude that Malcolm X is a good film if you have any understanding of the history of how the film was made, if you have any understanding of the critiques that were made about the film. So perhaps we're being a little unfair in not laying out a full critique of that film, because I wasn't necessarily thinking that was the plan for today. I'm happy to come back and do that. My simple one is that it takes 90 minutes before you see Malcolm X as Malcolm X in a movie about Malcolm X.
Before we do that, I got to go back and I ain't seen it since that premiere, since the Brooklyn premiere. Yeah. I haven't been able to sit through that film.
But
I sat through it that one time. I've never. So that's what 30
but
years
if you
ago?
go back. Yeah, but if you go back and even look and go back to that initial panel I talked about, to some of the arguments of the day, some of you may be, I don't know the age of some of our guests here today, but to what extent they looked into this then or maybe remember. But you have to remember what was being said there. When Spike Lee in this most recent thing on Democracy Now! Brings up the Norman Jewison thing, he's doing that as was called out back in the day, because he did just what Diallo was saying at the beginning of our show today. He raised the black nationalist flag of race so that he could get the film away from the white boy, and then made a film that only a white boy could make or would want to see. You know, in other words, you know.
And
go ahead.
Can we talk about Denzel?
We can. I mean,
and his Christian nationalism, where he talked about he became Malcolm X and he got off the swine and he learned to play. I don't know why.
That's what Spike said.
Been giving Denzel a pass. Denzel is an evangelical fundamentalist Christian and has been promoting evangelical fundamentalist Christianity across the black community for as long as he's been famous. And so I really doubt
I didn't even catch that. I just thought he was
a fascist. This Christian nationalist evoked Malcolm X.
I didn't know he was doing that. I just thought, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Me and Denzel got one other thing in common besides being handsome and loved by the ladies. He has also never watched that movie. He was interviewed just recently, and they were like, "Oh, we want to play a clip from Malcolm X," and he's like, "I ain't seen that shit. I don't watch that shit." Denzel don't even claim it. Yeah, I like you said, we could go into this shit, but yeah, he's like, I haven't seen that movie.
I thought he did a remarkable job. I thought the acting was great. I thought he did a wonderful job acting, and that was it. And then the politics was removed from the film. The film, all of the budget.
So what's the point?
I hear you.
What's the point? You could do a fictional character.
Yeah, he also played Steve Biko in a film that was not really about Biko, and he raised Biko's politics. It was about the white boy that wrote the book. Which the film was
here's hollowing out our ancestors. That ain't
here's
right.
His question, here's his question, Jared. So, in line with that Biko film, the reason why Spike Lee was saying that he's taking on this film is because they already shitted on one of our ancestors with Cry for Freedom. So it's my job to make sure that I speak for my ancestors with the Malcolm X. So with that said, because that was one of Spike's, that's what he was saying. With that said, watching both of those films, I guess I don't know if you want to compare shit to shit, but did he do better than the white boy did?
It's been a very long time since I saw Cry Freedom, but my short answer would be no, because again, you get more of Malcolm X's internationalism in terms of Hollywood films in Will Smith's Ali, in Mario Van Peebles' portrayal in that 5-minute scene than you do in all of Spike Lee's film. You get a presentation of Malcolm X that does what Peniel Joseph did to Malcolm in literature, that says he is an American hero with the burning of the American flag into an X and all that kind of stuff, and I am Malcolm X and all this other kind of stuff that he stole. I forgot who they said he stole that as a trope from some other filmmaker. But and then you get what we see, even some in the comments are confused into thinking that this is a powerful film about a powerful figure, but it's meant to do what has been done posthumously to Malcolm and many others, which is to rebrand Malcolm as somebody that would be not threatening and someone acceptable for audiences to pick up. And the version you get is, because all he does is walk away from the Nation of Islam, basically, and then get himself killed. It's like there's no real discussion of Malcolm and his politics or the threat that he became. So,
So one of the things that, like, I guess I didn't know how petty Spike Lee was towards Baraka and the rest of them, but I mean, he pretty much said that I'm not gonna let these Hotep Negroes stop my bag, and he said I'm still gonna take their $7 when they come to the movie. I didn't know they was beefing like that.
Well, I mean, when you listen to that panel. And I've listened to it so many times that it's I mean, I used to listen to it all the time. It was such a powerful conversation. And what they do outline, because the panel took place just before the film came out. So they were talking about how they had seen early scripts. They talked about the history of the script writing, the one that Baldwin had originally written and then got scrapped. They talk about all of that. And talk about, again, the politics of framing through script writing and scene selection, what we were going to get in the film. So and Baraka, Dhoruba, Clark, Ilambe, all of them made the point in one way or another that Spike wasn't interested in dealing with them, or Spike was only interested in keeping them at arm's length and was condemning them and saying, like, oh, here they go again, making me, I got to sit down with Baraka again. I got to sit down and talk to somebody else again, or whatever. It was he was so clear. And it was that whole thing of don't mess with me. Let me do my thing. I'm an artist. And remember what they also said when they quoted Warner Brothers. They brought out that clip and quoted Warner Brothers as saying, we want to market, we want to brand Malcolm X as we do Batman and The Simpsons. So Warner Brothers was very clear. We're going to make this a Well, they only compared it to their own other products.
Right. But the X cap back.
All of that. So let me read a few things from Baraka's word. I want you,
Chirac.
In a second, yeah, we're gonna mention
y'all let him get away with that.
No, that's your people. That's your shit. That's your shit. But listen, I want to read a couple because there was a lot of
my cousin's in that movie.
yeah. Here go this name drop. See him name drop. But here go this prophetic statements that Baraka was making even before the movie was coming out. And I want the chat and Diallo and Jared to kind of respond to some of it. But he talked about, him and Brav talked about, she's got to have it, made Black women struggle for equal rights look like nymphomania. And school days turned Black colleges into brown-skinned animal houses, reducing Black issues. And then people asked them, hey, Baraka, why are you all on Spike Lee's back? And he was like, Spike Lee is a retrograde movement, a part of a retrograde movement in this country. And Braff was just talking about how they was urging them not to allow him to do it because of Do the Right Thing and all these other movies that he did was pretty much trash and exploiting Black people. So when you think about the critiques and all the stuff that was laid out before, and then he literally did what I don't know if they saw the film. I doubt they saw the film, but maybe they read the autobiography. But they literally laid out what he was going to do. And it seems like their critiques age really well. His critiques didn't. I mean, his shit didn't age really well. So is he there today or a couple of days ago doing a cleanup job and putting people back to sleep? Is that what that was his goal for his interview with Democracy Now? Because there's a level of consciousness that's rising with people on Malcolm X, and is Spike Lee sent out there to put people back to sleep, or what do you think?
I mean, go ahead, Diallo. Go ahead. This is cool. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that individuals like Spike Lee make Blackness palatable for the mainstream, and they are personally rewarded for that. There's enough danger, there's enough edginess, there's enough sass within his blackness of white folks, and enough job talk, but it's hollow, it's cosmetic, it's surface. So Spike Lee takes the aesthetic of Black consciousness, Black militancy, Black culture, and markets it to a larger audience. And that is great for him personally, for his personal profit, but it is costly to the culture and to the community as a whole, because there is a effect where he extracts from our culture, waters it down, hollows it out, puts it on white platforms, and then the white mainstream media sells it back to the Black masses. And so we're literally we're consuming a regurgitated, denurtured version of our own culture. And it's not just in movies, it's in music, it's in fashion. And it's so that Black people can say, yeah, you know, I'm oppressed and all that, but we got a Malcolm X movie, so it can't be that bad. We got Black people in prominent position. We got a Black man owning a team. And like I was saying earlier, at the same time, they don't just do this type of shit in a cultural level. It translates onto a material, social, economic level. Individuals like Spike Lee and Jay-Z calling out Marcy, calling Brooklyn, they are the ones who spearheaded gentrification and Black displacement. So it goes beyond just our opinions on works of art and impacts our very ability to reproduce and sustain ourselves. Because Spike Lee, when they created that little cultural sphere and started bringing in white money and white tourism and white people like, yeah, and white boys, I can give me a Malcolm X cap. You know, I really love Denzel in Training Day. He came right after Malcolm and Much Ado About Nothing. It's all in the same box. Shit that is essential for our survival becomes a product to be marketed and sold. So individuals like from Jay-Z to Spike Lee, who water down and market Black culture, Black militancy, Black consciousness to the masses, and then the mainstream sells it back to us, and we start accepting a hollowed out version. Then they come in with displacement and oppression. This is the colonial or neo-colonial methodology, using Black folks, using Black people to advance the agendas of the white oppressors.
I don't think he
and making it look militant.
I don't think Diallo means spearhead in the sense of starting gentrification. I think he means being the point used to thrust it through. That's to aid.
Listen,
in which case he's exactly right.
If you look at Jay-Z and Marcy right now, there are tours in Marcy projects. It is Jay-Z and Spike Lee that put Black Brooklyn, Black New York, son, Nostrand Ave, Flatbush, Fulton Ave, who put that consciousness into the white mainstream. Crooklyn, and in the movies, where suburban white kids could go to a Spike Lee movie and drive into the Spike Lee movie in Arkansas or Nebraska, listening to Jay-Z as they drive to the suburban metroplex to watch a Spike Lee movie, and them the same crackers is like, hey, yo, I'm a going over
there are tours.
I'm moving to Brooklyn. Yes, there are Marcy tours, all white people. And the Marcy Projects is still there, still impoverished with, no matter how many times Jay-Z shout out Marcy, he ain't put shit into Marcy.
He brought him a crypto
he's done for Brooklyn,
Bitcoin
the only
class.
thing he's done for Brooklyn is displace Black people and the Black culture of Brooklyn. Displace Black people, price out Black people for their own personal profit. And Spike Lee did it too. And Spike Lee, that area, one of the most first gentrified areas was the areas where they had all those Black businesses of all those cultural icons, and now they're all leaving. Spike Lee has reopened 40 Acres in the Muse, but Moshood and all that shit, it's all was where white folks got their first
I used to have Moshood
in Brooklyn.
So
yeah, that's gone. It's gone.
Jared,
it was right up the block from Spike Lee's joint. Moshood is gone.
So Jared, you watched and listened to the panel. You know the efforts before the movie came out. Spike Lee once said that there are 30 million Black people in this country, and he thinks that more of them on his side than Baraka's side. What is Spike doing at Democracy Now? Like, what's his goal? What's
So I mean,
his...
but he's right. I mean, but the point is, but
He's right.
again, that's Peniel Joseph's argument about the popularity of mainstream civil rights leaders over Stokely Carmichael, as he would say. But the argument isn't. But as I used to joke, I mean, Britney Spears sold more records than Aretha Franklin. So what are we saying? Like, what is, you know, like so the point, the point is, what makes anyone or anything or any idea more popular than the other? Is it that it's right? No, often that's not the case. It's because it's been promoted, propagated by a well-organized tiny minority who exist as a tiny minority and survive by their ability to project their interests and magnify their interests. So of course more people agree with him than Baraka, because most people don't know who Baraka is and don't understand his argument or his politics, whereas Spike Lee is welcomed and easily promoted by places like Democracy Now! That are ever increasingly more conservative and right-wing, who are well-funded, more powerful white entities who want this version of blackness to be projected. That's why Warner Brothers was willing to finish off the film for him, for Spike, that is. That's why he's able to have, and again, to Diallo's point, he only gets upset when he's not able to use that side entrance into to go see the Knicks. that's the only time he starts raising his blackness, when he needs to get a film from Norman Jewison. But when black people to his left, legends, I mean, again, what I was always struck by, and I'm still struck by, think about the perspective of a Spike Lee and the gall of a Spike Lee to, in the early 90s, tell Dhoruba, Baraka, Elambe Brath, and now I'm forgetting the fourth person. Who was the fourth? Dr. Clark. Imagine telling them, nah, Dr. Clark, who had Malcolm on his living room floor putting the OAAU together. Imagine telling him, I don't need your input on this script. I don't need your input on this project because I got this. In fact, stay out of the way. In fact, he wrote a whole thing condemning all of them. And then he, in his whole, the making of Malcolm or something like that, didn't he do a whole,
he also got Cornel West to go at them. Y'all remember that? The black demagogues? Yeah.
Well, I remember he did the whole in Race Matters, Malcolm X was a nihilist.
Right.
So to follow up then, Jared, so because I get a lot of
Spike Lee did. I'm sorry, just quickly. Spike Lee did know Dr. Clark, and they were in fact in touch with one another. And
and Professor William Mackey was there. They were all that. This era.
Be clear. This is a willful, conscious choice that Spike made to walk away from them, knowing he wouldn't get his Warner Brothers film made if he stayed with them, if they had too much of an impact on the script. So he made his right choice as far as his career was concerned, but it was a willful, conscious decision. He was not some ignorant, whoops, I didn't know who these folks were.
So again, let me ask this follow-up. So I'm getting multiple people from home, like inboxing me, texting me because of the Little Mermaid shit, right? And they said, man, Geechee, you always hating and nothing is good enough and blah, 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 blah. So when you look at the Spike response to this, and then now you fast forward to Shaka King, Ryan Coogler, and Fred Hampton, right? Because Braff was just asking that, hey, Spike, before you do this film, why don't you dive deep into his life and study and learn from these people? And Shaka King and Ryan Coogler supposedly did that with Fred Hampton, his son. His wife.
Thought I read that Shaka King said he didn't know anything about Fred Hampton until he got assigned to the movie or something like that. I thought he was very late to that.
No, he did say that, but he also included the son and the wife in his production. So, okay, now if we're always complaining about something and we got reason to complain with Malcolm X and Spike Lee, how do you then respond to now? Okay, well, his son even said it was good. His son even approved it. The wife approved it. So how can y'all say?
Look, I'm on the record. Fred Hampton Jr. was here, and we've had a couple of discussions on his platform. We had one here, and we just don't agree. I mean, his argument and his crew is that as whatever the flaws of the film are, organizing can be done with it, points can be made using it, and Raz Leon just hit me up on Instagram the other day, regurgitating that. And Raz, all due respect, we just don't agree. And I think that there's zero data. There's no data to support. It does. Just real quick, there's zero data to support the argument that he and others continue to make about if you just present the ideas, then people will come to them. Because in other words, going back to this point about Malcolm and Spike Lee, 30 years later, we would have had a Malcolm X styled revolution at this point if films were if films were to have the impact on their audiences that some of these folks claim. The opposite is true. They have a lulling effect. But yeah, anyway, go ahead, Diallo.
Yeah, I ain't seen Judas and the Black Messiah, because just to refer to Fred Hampton as a Messiah, is
the
enough
line
for me to know.
Well, they were trying to be slick, making reference to the COINTELPRO document where the FBI was saying we don't want another Black Messiah. So where Fred Hampton was named as that.
All right, I know the reference.
So I know you. There. So, but to your point, I think you're right that they're trying to do the Messiah labeling in the popular context. And then when someone like me or you raises that critique, they can come back and say, no, this is a reference to the COINTELPRO thing.
Right.
But you didn't put COINTELPRO in the movie because you did what Jonathan Aig did in his new book on Dr. King. You reduce where he literally doesn't mention COINTELPRO at all and reduces the FBI involvement around Dr. King, just as this movie does to Fred Hampton, as the machinations of a lost and individual J. Edgar Hoover. Not anything institutional, state-driven or anything like that. It's just this one lunatic went too far and everybody else would have been more, the rest of the agency, the rest of the state was more or less cool or, certainly not as bad. But, so Judas does the same thing as Eeg does, and then Malcolm's Spike Lee's Malcolm more or less does the same thing too, because you get very little or none really of Malcolm X's politics, what made him a threat, what made him a danger, what would have inspired him to become the target of what would eventually be called the COINTELPRO, all of those things. You don't get it. It's all left vague so that you can sell and make a movie. And then you can come back years later and give a speech on Democracy Now! Where you make no reference to those politics. You don't have to make a reference to the fact that, as Diallo and others have been pointing out, even in Spike's own city, Black communities are destroyed, decimated, removed, et cetera, and so forth, continue to be exploited. He doesn't have to talk about any of that, and can then only, again, raise Betty Shabazz's name to say that she helped produce give him a great idea for a scene.